The people of the Motherland have come. Unfortunately, I am Superman of Doom Chapter 63. Meng was very satisfied that as the ancient Doomsday he did not have Kryptonian genes, so he unceremoniously stepped into the inner cabin of the Kryptonian spaceship. The spacious passage of the spaceship is still a little crowded for the 3-meter bone spur body. As the Dream of Doom enters, Kryptonian types with different color styles and S-family emblems on their chests automatically pop up in the closet of the spaceship corridor. Doomsday Dream originally wanted to try on one, but after thinking about it, he went deep into the cockpit of the Krypton spaceship. The next moment when his front foot stepped into the cockpit, a voice suddenly sounded in the cabin. "My son, Kal-El. I knew you would come here." Along with the man's words, a mature middle-aged man's stereoscopic projection was revealed in the dim cabin. Jor-El smiled and said, "I, as a virtual intelligence for a moment, have been waiting for this moment." Quote, "Now, get ready to learn everything about your Kryptonian homeland and inherit the hope and will of the family." His words stopped abruptly, and the virtual 3-dimensional figure looked up and saw a bone spur monster with red flames surging in his eyes. In the cockpit of the Kryptonian spacecraft, there was a dead silence again. 0071 Ancient Day of Doom on Earth. The momentary virtual intelligence on the Kryptonian spacecraft, Joer, which Joer himself programmed according to his own thinking, will be activated after someone reactivates and enters the Kryptonian spacecraft for the first time. This is one of the backhands left by Jor-El himself. According to the original planning process, as long as Jor-El himself sent his son Kal-El to Earth here before the destruction of the Kryptonian civilization, only Kal-El, who is an adult and the only Kryptonian on Earth, can reactivate the Kryptonian spacecraft in the future. So, at the moment the Kryptonian spacecraft was reactivated, the virtual intelligence Jor-El was also activated in the cockpit's database. Even if his own self as an entity may have long been buried with the Krypton civilization, as a momentary intelligence, he can at least see his son again, his son after adulthood. When he becomes an adult, his son should be as tall as him and strong enough. For a moment, the virtual intelligence Jor-El suppressed his excitement, so as the sound of steps came from the corridor of the spaceship, he slowly turned the virtual stereoscopic projection body while whispering warm and uplifting words. "Get ready to accept the will that our family represents to hope." Is it? However, in the next moment, Jor-El stopped all his movements and words. The smile on the face of the middle-aged man who was a virtual stereoscopic projection froze, first in disbelief, then in amazement, looking at the presence of 3-meter bone spurs walking into the cockpit in the self-lit corridor. What about his son Kal? Why is this extreme Kryptonian product representing the end of destruction? Wait a minute, why is Doomsday here? Is it the one where they have been imprisoned in their Krypton homeland for thousands of years? Ancient Day of Doom? At this moment, even if it is a wisp of thinking programming, Joer, who is a virtual intelligence for a moment, still goes down, and there is a fear that is enough to make the program confused. I thought that this ancient day of destruction, which was the existence of nightmares and demons for Krypton, would be lost in the universe along with the destruction of Kryptonian civilization. As a result, the ancient Doomsday appeared on Earth here. Then the Earth still has the hope of a hammer soul. Joer, who takes hope as the will of the family, instantly lost hope, even if he was confident in his son Kal, who grew up under the radiation of the yellow sun. He was not confident enough to be able to resist the ancient existence of this Krypton. Because, as one of the top scientists and warriors of Krypton, Joer is very aware of some of the hidden characteristics of this ancient Doomsday Day. This ancient being has a terrifying ability characteristic that makes people despair. And it is precisely because of that ability that Krypton has only been able to imprison him for thousands of years. Once he breaks free from the efforts and technology of the Kryptonian civilization. For a moment, the virtual intelligence Jor-El thought of this, and immediately made a decision. This ancient day of destruction must not be allowed to exist in the Earth civilization remaining here, otherwise the Earth, which is the hotbed of his son's growth, will also usher in a Krypton-like ending. Fortunately, the ancient Doomsday has always been irrational, and it has not yet destroyed this Krypton exploration spacecraft. I must restart this Kryptonian spacecraft, let the spacecraft fly out as soon as possible, away from Earth, and fly into the black hole with this ancient being. For a moment, the virtual intelligence Joer's mind turned sharply, and he quietly connected to the intelligence system of the Kryptonian spacecraft. This ancient being, who lost his wisdom and destroyed his incarnation, should not exist in this world in the first place. It should disappear in the universe with the burial of Krypton. Kal, this is the last thing I did for you, father. For a moment, the virtual intelligence Joer's eyes flashed with tears, just as he was about to activate the spaceship engine and fly away from the current Earth with a spatial leap. He saw the ancient day of destruction suddenly moving forward when he walked into the cockpit. The 3-meter-tall bone spur monster appeared, with a blazing red flame of destruction in his eyes. Walked to the driver's seat of the control cabin and placed his grey and bony big hand on the platform. What does he want to do? Do you want to destroy this Kryptonian spaceship? Without waiting for a moment, the virtual intelligence Jor-El reacted. In the next instant, his contact with the spacecraft's control system was cut off, and the spacecraft's engine, which was originally intended to ignite and start, fell silent again. This is. For a moment, the virtual intelligence Joel was stunned. Obviously unable to understand the current change, he completely lost control of the spaceship system. And was blocked and deleted as a virus. Moisture. Joel, who appeared as a virtual stereoscopic projection, was distorted and blurry, and it was difficult to maintain a complete figure. And he finally looked at the bone spur existence with an incredible expression, and his thinking program was completely confused. This is something that is absolutely impossible to happen. The virtual stereo projection disappeared, and the cockpit was dim and quiet again, leaving only the control platform lit. At this moment, this Krypton spacecraft belongs to me. The grey face of the ancient Doomsday showed a humane expression, and a wisp of crimson gold virtual static electricity flowed back from the spacecraft control platform into the eyebrows. The power of the mind gem fragment extradited not only helps to curb the will to destroy, but also brings some artificial intelligence characteristics, which are stronger than the artificial intelligence characteristic abilities held in reality. Although it is only partial, far from the level of true artificial intelligence, it is still possible to process a small program code. Ruined Imo took control of the Kryptonian spacecraft and exited the unmanned cockpit. Passing the corridor of the spaceship, Doomsday Dream's gaze fell on one of the Kryptonian Superman tights floating out of the closet and paused. 10 seconds later, the engine of the Krypton exploration spacecraft ignited, and the alien spacecraft that had been frozen for several years restarted. Directly crashed upwards and forcibly broke through the dome inside the iceberg, and took off towards the Antarctic night sky outside. Thundered. This iceberg completely collapsed. The center of the Earth hides the sea. Atlanta, holding the baby of Krypton, sat blankly on the island beach, and the Trident artifact was casually stranded with the small spaceship. Atlanta didn't understand why bone spurs existed, brought them here, imprisoned, or fattened and then eaten. Then, with a roar, the surface of the Tibetan Sea leading to the whirlpool of the outside sea in front of it opened, and a pitch-black giant alien spaceship rushed into the current geocentric Tibetan Sea. With a spectacular momentum, someone came to our rescue. Atlanta was surprised and delighted, and quickly stood up holding the Krypton baby, but saw the alien spacecraft flying directly over and landing on the coast of the island. Phew. Dust billowing with sand. After the black alien spacecraft stopped, the engine braking stopped, the spacecraft cabin opened, and a tall figure walked out. Atlanta's eyes widened incredulously. I see. Isn't that the bone spur monster that defeated the sea god Poseidon before? It's just that the original bone spurs that were originally naked existed, and now he wore a tight and suitable black battlesuit, like a striking curve made of metal forging. And the chest of the suit was topped with an S-shaped hope emblem. The hideous bone spurs on the back are covered by a black cloak draped over the back of the shoulders. Only the grey head and face are still cold and terrifying, and the destruction flame in his eyes that shocks all things is not extinguished. Less out of control, more sacred. Atlanta opened her mouth wide, suddenly realizing that this skull spur monster might have always had wisdom. Wisdom and non-wisdom are obviously two concepts. The intelligent life existence that is strong enough to defeat the old gods means that the other party has the possibility of becoming the supreme of the world. 0072 Dream Anchor, no runaway method. Looking at the presence of 3-meter bone spurs in black battle suits, Atlanta was surprised and delighted. Shockingly, a powerful existence with wisdom means that it is almost impossible for him to escape the control of the other party. Happily, the other party may be able to communicate. Hello, this Mr. Bonespur, my lord, my name is Atlanta, I am from the bottom of the sea. Atlanta took a deep breath, her body still trembled involuntarily, and said towards the Bonespur presence, excuse me, what do you call it? Quote. The bone spur existence did not pay attention to her, suddenly roared violently, and the red flame of destruction in her eyes burst forward, cutting the hidden sea in the center of the earth from the beach. Moisture. A large amount of seawater evaporated in an instant, and a devastating red light flashed, and the sea area ahead was split in half. Feeling the rushing heat, Atlanta turned pale with fright, fell backwards to the ground again, and hugged the sleeping baby in her arms. Boom. The bone spur existence took a step, and a deep pit was sunk into the sand in place, and he jumped violently to the far end, smashing a suspended mountain in the center of the Earth's hidden sea. The storm is sweeping, and the landslide is cracking. The beautiful and stunning hidden sea in the center of the Earth instantly turned into a terrifying purgatory. The grey and white bone spurs in black battle clothes were far away like this, only at the other end of the Tibetan Sea in the center of the Earth, there were constantly shaking and turbulent waves, making the Tibetan Sea constantly set off one big wave after another.